Good evening. We're going to start the meeting. I just want to briefly remind you all of our timeline. Well, tonight's meeting, the board will be meeting on December 20th, where they will be getting an update of what we're up to. We have another facilities committee meeting on December 21st. And then keep in the back of your mind, we may have to have additional meetings in January, and that might be January 4th and the 18th, just keeping the every other Tuesday kind of thing. The board will be having an update on January 10th. Has to adopt one of the resolutions on the 24th, January 24th. And then 45-day notice, and then May 17th is the vote. So just keep that in mind as we move forward tonight. We had asked the administration to look at these items when we had the main mission we gave them last time, and come up with and deem what is the most critical, so that we can begin to weed things down a little. Because we were, if you will, over budget last time. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Harvey, and he will take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, so tonight we have a host of things to go over. It's important to note a couple things first in terms of how we got to the planning document changes that we're going to go over. First thing is, Walter and I have had a couple meetings with Tetra Tech as well as the Palumbo Group with regards to really diving into the scope and really trying to identify what the true numbers are. And the planning documents, again, that's the big document we have, that is reflective now of everything with the exception of the roof scans prognosis with regards to a price. We'll be getting that very shortly. Walter will talk a little bit more about that. But the numbers that you're seeing here are really good numbers now, and I'm very happy to say that. The other thing to keep in mind is that when we go through this planning document, you'll see that we've made a host of changes, because when we've been meeting this week, we've been trying to get this down to what are the most critical needs. And Walter has had a meeting with every principal again since we last met. We have, which you have a copy of in front of you, you have the surveys from both the community and the staff, as well as our meetings with Tetra Tech and the Palumbo Group. So we've really scrubbed this down. And what you're going to see is the numbers have come down dramatically. Additionally, something I want to point out is that the scope dollar amount, the total amount that the project can be, is being pegged at $23 million now. And I'll tell you how we got there. Essentially, we have the $5 million capital reserve, so we know that based on our aid ratio, we can do something equal to $20 million with no impact to the taxpayer. Additionally, we have a bond that will be paid off in April of 2023. That is a $3.6 million bond. So by virtue of that debt service falling off, we can now absorb that and add it to what we can do without having an impact to the taxpayers. 3.6, you might say, why am I only putting 3 in there? The reason is because there's a couple reasons. One, a couple of years out, we still need a little bit of a little wiggle room. Additionally, we don't know where the regular general fund budget will be at that point in time with state aid and so forth. So we need to leave a little dry powder, okay? So the bottom line is that we're at 23 million. Now, looking at the planning document, if you would, again, it reflects all these meetings, it reflects the refined numbers. I'm going to turn this over to Walter to go through all the blues, because remember, the blues reflect what we've changed since last meeting. But I want to bring your attention first to the very last page. What you'll see there in the column that's titled the critical need, which is what we've always identified as that's what we need to do in this project, we've gotten it down to $17 million. When we compare that to the 23 million, that leaves us with almost $6 million that is really the charge of this committee at this point to determine how that gets spent. Do we use it on the athletic fields? Or do we pull more items from future projects that we need to get done into this project? The fact that the fields are, right there, you're looking at about approximately $9 million. We're not getting into it at this moment, but we're confident that we can get that number down. There's changes that we can make in the scope that really won't have much impact, that we can get it down. So that will be the conversation after Walter goes through, so that you have a full understanding of how we got there. So with that said, I'll turn it over to you, Walter.
All right, so since the last time we met, understanding that there's the importance of improving our athletic facilities and also addressing the need within the buildings, trying to look at the high priority, or I'm going to use the term, the quality of life components of what's going to have the biggest impact to our community, our students and our staff. So I met with each one of the principals, and we went through the items and what was the most important, understanding that what we wanted to do was to get the monies down to about 15 million on the building condition survey. So then there would be around 7 million that could go to any athletic improvements. Understanding, again, those where we wanted to really provide quality, to all the stakeholders. Okay, so moving forward, I'm only going to address the blue items that has changed. I'm going to move quickly. If anybody has any questions, just stop me. I could expand on the answer. All right, so at the high school building, and remember the high school and the middle school is going to have non-destructive testing, so we could determine what type of condition that the roof is in, and we could make a better decision on the pathway to remedy the situation. So we were able to do that examination on the middle school yesterday, and next Wednesday we will be doing that on the high school. So what Harvey and I did is we took the high school and we've moved that out to a future project because we want to analyze what really needs to be done there, how it impacts the roof. We know that additional insulation would have to be installed if we did the roof. Does the roof really need to be done? Is it really a maintenance project? So these are all the questions that we have. So it's best that we move that into the column on the future, and then we could address those needs when we get more data. So that's why that's there. Caulk entire building envelope. There's a few things that need to be done, which I believe that we could do that in-house in a combination with an allowance for the rest of the building. So we move that out to a future project. Okay, the change on for the mechanical install baseball heating, ductwork, and band and chorus, you'll see that there was an upcharge in that line item, and that's because we received additional information from our mechanical engineer, which our construction manager applied that to the number, and those are the more realistic numbers that Harvey was talking about. All right, moving down to the football athletic field, recrown, sod, irrigation. That's in blue, but if you look all the way to the far right, there's really no number. We don't think that that's the proper remedy there, because we know if we put that money into that remedy, that we're only going to be back in the same situation a year or two later. So it's there just for clerical purposes only. Any questions on high school? Okay, I'll move down to the middle school. The first one is the bus loop, the new option, the rear entrance off of Mallory Avenue. Again, we feel that's a critical quality of life component that we added in there, because that'll really change the culture and bring relief to Main Street and to the middle school. And we felt that that was very important, so we included that in the numbers. Bus loop, replace the concrete sidewalks. We moved that to a future project with the thought of doing maintenance repairs on some of the critical failures that we have on that sidewalk. So saw cutting, doing a couple of squares here and there, just to buy us maybe another 2 to 3 more years on that sidewalk. Rear entrance, install curbing. We pushed that out, but we feel that if we do the work with the new bus loop, that might actually be captured with that. Okay. Again, we're on the middle school here. Roof, remove, replace with EPDM, the D-wing only. Again, this is it's an asphalt built-up roof. We did do our examination. We're getting the analysis back, but right now that's just a hold, because if there's maintenance work that I could do on that roof, now that we've identified it, I think it would be best that we do that maintenance work. We stop any of the leaks that we identify, and we push that out for years 7 and 9. Again, we're trying to look at how can we fund the athletic upgrades and quality of life issues. Not saying that it's not important, but we have some other priorities, and our vision is as such. So that's really the driving force behind it. Replace various exterior doors and frames. So we have a number with that. I've also spoke with our carpenter. We have one carpenter in the district. He's a locksmith carpenter. And there's several things that we could do immediately on some of the existing doors that we'll be able to upgrade them. Replace rear entrance storefront system. Meeting with our designers and our construction manager, that number changed due to the scope and some of the design constraints. So that's very close to a realistic number. Replace auditorium air handlers, we move that out. Replace the weight room air handling unit, we move that out. Lavatories are a high priority in the middle school. We have come up with a number of 10 locations, and sitting down with our construction manager and our designer, we've come to that number. Any questions for the middle school?
Walter, just one. When you mentioned the moving out the 2 air handling units, auditorium and weight room, was that just based on kind of a honing in the need assessment, saying like, well, maybe they're not as essential this time around, or was there a plan to do that in-house or something?
Well, again, with most of these items, I like to do it all, but we can't do it all. So during as your facility director, I have to, make some critical decisions on end-of-life things, on, can I support another 3 or 4 more years on some of these items in order to reach the vision that we have, and that's what I applied for this piece of machinery.
Great, thank you.
Walter. Oh, just the bathrooms here. Obviously, we've talked about those in the middle school before. So I'm just wondering why they're in blue. Was that just a cost change based on a previous estimate, or because clearly that's not a new need that we have not discussed before?
No, I think it's going through and meeting with the building principal. There was a couple of add-ons. The number increased from 8 to 10.
Okay. Thank you.
That's with some of the faculty lavatories.
Okay.
Yes, Tom?
I think it's great that you want to do a lot of this in-house. Do you have additional headcount that you're going to need because of this?
I'm actually working on the budget right now. I'll be submitting it to district office by the end of December. And in conversation with them, I do have a plan. What I'd like to do is create a separate pathway. Right now, we're operations and maintenance. I like to have project-specific skilled individuals that I could actually put them on a project and let them go for 30, 40 days, not interrupt them. They're not first responders. They're not running, and I'm not pulling them off of jobs. They're staying focused on that project, and they'll be able to get things done, and they'll be able to produce high-quality work. So that's my vision for my department. That's my goal. So I'll put the plan together. I'll make the submission to Mr. Dade and Mr. Sotlin, and I'll sit down with them through the budget, and we'll see if it's something that the budget could support. Okay, moving over to Cornwall Elementary School, parking lot and bus loop. So again, we spoke about the compartmentalizing. Instead of doing it as a whole, we thought about breaking it up into pieces, and the decision that we made is that the staff parking lot and the bus loop would be of critical value. That's including basically around the island and the whole staff parking. The sidewalk and the asphalt from Lee Road or Lee Road itself would be pushed out to a future project. What I would do is I would do some maintenance work on the existing sidewalks, again, to extend the longevity to get us out to that point where we do have the funding to do it. Entrance road was deferred. You could see that with the strike-through. Bus loop, it's talking about the concrete sidewalks and the curbing. Again, that's a strike-through. Replace air handlers units in the cafeteria and kitchen, although extremely important. Again, looking at achieving the goal, our vision, and the funding that's needed for that, we made the decision to push that out to a future project. Lavatories within the building. Again, replace the water lines, waste lines. This includes a 200-foot sewer line replacement. I'll explain what this is. This is actually installing a new sewer line on the outside of the building. This way we can circumvent the existing line, and we don't have to rip that up and have a conflict with the interior of the building. We could really isolate the work to the lavatories, put a new waste line on the outside, and logistically that would work very well. So that's what that line item means for sewer line. So all the solids and the waste would, for the lavatories in the back of the building, would go in that new sewer line. Okay, any questions on? Lee Road?
Yeah, just one, and maybe this is a question, Larry, you may know the answer to this too. I'm just looking at replace the front entrances, cafeteria and storefronts. Is that money from the school safety grant that is taking forever to get to our district? Right, so is that part of the rationale for removing it?
That would be, no, separate and apart. Right?
Okay.
So, again, a lot gets moved to, my side of the street, so to speak. I've met with one of my maintenance mechanics and our painter, and we have a plan working with our designers on some colors, because I would defer to them on some colors, because I'm not really the best color pro person, so to speak. And our idea is to caulk, repair, regasket, and paint at the front. Again, this would be really with the crew who is project specific.
Brendan, the security project only addresses part of the storefront. The other part is what Walter's referring to.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. All right, we're going to move down to Willow Avenue. You'll see the second line bus loop replace concrete sidewalks and curbing in the front. So we've moved that out to a future project, but there is some work that I believe that I could do in-house. We do have a backhoe. We do have some skilled labor. I could always hire the concrete finishers. It's on the left-hand side by the exit of the 72 wing. You see those bollards that are there made out of concrete. Concrete there is in pretty poor shape. I believe that we could do some remedial work there just to make it better. until we could get to the full project. All right, building. So, Willow Avenue it takes on water from the subsurface water. I don't believe that there's footing drains around the existing building, which is probably most of the cause why moisture enters in through the foundation and by the footing. And also, the loading dock is not waterproof. So some of the things, speaking with our designers, is to enclose the loading dock with a roof, walls, so we could really shed the water. We could protect the switchgear that's below all the other contents. We have a mechanical room down there. We'll be able to protect that. An added bonus would be some storage, which the building is absolutely lacking with. So we're actually getting, a little bit better value than just shedding the water. Rear loading dock, exterior auditorium wall, regrade, remedy groundwater. I don't want to speak for my designers, but I would presume that we're digging up against a foundation wall. We're putting in some footing drains, stone. We're going to wrap it with some geofabric and then do some waterproofing on the foundation wall. We'll backfill it with stone as far as we can. We'll tamp it and we'll do the blacktop repair. I think that'll take care of a lot of water on the outside of the gymnasium going around the building, and it would be very helpful. And then we'll examine the interior, see if we need to put a French drain inside, maybe we need to put another sump pump, or maybe we need to put another sump pump or two, something backup, but I think that's going in a good direction. Repair cracking in the stucco wall, that's moved out to a future project, but again, speaking with my crew in-house, we believe that we could grind those cracks, we could make those repairs, and then put some sort of waterproof coating on that foundation wall. Replace the exterior egress out of the auditorium. Okay, so we had some detailed conversations on what the design looks like and what that construction would bring into that room. So all those that are familiar with Willow Avenue, if you're facing the stage, it's the left-hand side. You'll see 3 arches, the center arch. That's where a pair door, double door, would be installed to exit the auditorium right there. There'll be some sort of configuration, maybe a ramp, something to meet handicapped accessibility needs right there. I know that an operable window is important, so I would talk to the designers when we get into, that design, and be able to get some fresh air and some natural light in there. We have height that we could go and grab from that arch. So
Walter, just with what you just said, last night I made a promise that I would bring up ventilation at the auditorium. So you're saying that there will be windows that we can now
or a window
with something that can, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I promised I would bring it up.
All right. So just to note, there are 2 exhaust fans that are in the auditorium, and they do operate. They're on left and right side of the stage, and what that does is it just sucks the air in from the corridor, and the doors open, all that free air movement brings it into the auditorium, and it brings it all the way up to the roof. So we do have ventilation in there, although it's not of a modern type because the building is old. But this work here would give natural light and natural ventilation in there. You're welcome. Okay. Replace the gym floor, including the subfloor. So that's moved out to future project, and I'll answer the reason why. And you'll see down on electrical, we've moved the switchboard out to a future project. And the reason is we want to be able to do the water remedial work first, and we want to test our remedy to ensure that we've actually succeeded in achieving our goal. I don't want to put a new gym floor in or a switchgear only to find out that we're still getting moisture in there. So, and the lead time with this project and the future project, it would actually work out okay for us to do that. Any questions on Willow Avenue?
I'd like to commend you on that last thought there, saying that you want to do the remedial work first to see if it works. I think that's very smart. Thank you.
Well, I think it's a collective decision-making on all parties. It's the synergy, right? I mean, I just did a research paper on that, and I'm serious. And, you know, how the collective group is actually stronger and better to reach the outcome than just a single individual, you know, similar to what we have here. You know, a few other things I'd like to say on Willow Avenue. We did install a roof on the 1972 wing. That was completed over Thanksgiving break. I don't know if everyone is aware of that. We had Frank Stevenson Roofing do that work. He's on a piggyback contract. And it was very seamless. He flooded the job with about 15 men. He did a fantastic job. That's all done. We had in-house folks point the front of the wall there, so that masonry is all pointed. And we do have a drywall company coming in during the winter break. It's Tri-State Drywall. We did get a very good number from them. We are going to remove the soffits completely, the horizontal and the vertical. And we are going to insulate where there was no insulation before, hoping to minimize any of the ice damming that had occurred over the years in that building. The contractor will reinstall the drywall, they'll tape it, and then our staff will prime and paint it. And that's planned for over the holiday recess. Any questions on Willow Avenue? All right, Cornwall on Hudson. All right, so we put an allowance working with Lou Rodriguez from the Palumbo Group on the repair, repoint, and cleaning the masonry. Because we know we need to do something there, so, you know, let's at least put an allowance. We'll hit the most high priority areas, and then while we're there examining what we'll do on the next round. Same thing with the steel lintels. Again, while we're up there doing the work, we're going to be up and close with the steel lintels. We have an allowance there. The boilers we pushed out to a future project. And the lavatories. Again, we have them in there. We've updated the numbers. We understand what we're able to do by the constrictions of the age of the building and what we could do on a lower level. Any questions on Cornwall and Hudson?
Just so I understand the allowance part, so basically saying, all right, we'll carve out this amount of money, and when we get in there, we're just going to go in and just do as many high priority activities within that budget that it allows.
That's correct. So it's very similar to household funding. You know, you say, I know I have to do this, but I only have this amount of money, so it's better to do something than nothing. And then while we're there, we're up very close in our examination, and then we could at least do some of the work, right? A pick at a day, a fence in a year almost. I like that philosophy. Works very well here in Cornwall. So that's really kind of like the mindset on that. It's better to do something than nothing. So let's see what's our affordability. We will put our affordability there. And that gets our designers, our construction manager, we get up and close and we could really see what's going on, and then we could plan for the future. So that's really what that's all about. Okay. And again, buildings and grounds and the district office, we'll just plan out of the O&M. I do want to talk a little bit about, there's a service road over by Buildings and Grounds, Lee Road and Middle School, and we recently, we shut that down, and we're not permitting any traffic to go through there. And there's only one reason why, is because the vehicles were just going way too fast, and that's a walker path for our students going to the middle school. And so many times I've seen very close calls. The cars are going extremely quick, 40 miles an hour, very close. They don't slow down. They actually speed up. It became a very hazardous situation. So in consultation with my district office, it would be in the best interest of our students and our staff to close it down. I have not seen a greater impact in the front of the building. I counted maybe 40 vehicles in the morning going through. Some were very nice when we closed it down. Some of the people were even nicer. So. Some drove on the grass. There's nothing more to it than we don't want to see a child get hurt, and that's the reason why. Okay, and then moving down to the athletic complex, again, those are the numbers directly from our designers and our construction managers. I know our very hardworking athletic director has really kind of scrubbed through what can be moved out, what can be not needed, and I know there's a possibility of that number moving, but you can see those numbers right there. The bottom line number, I think we've kind of achieved, the goal that we were looking for. We're so much closer than we were about 2 months ago. So I turn it back over to you, Mr. Sotlin and Mr. Berger.
All right, thank you, Harvey. No, you're Harvey. You're Walter. Okay. Thank you, whoever you are. Okay, what comes down to is we have to make a decision in this group as to, do we look at the athletic facility with the understanding that perhaps some of those numbers can come down to actually reach 5.8, 5.9 million? Or do we say we're going to go back and look at the bits and pieces that the administration has said can be done in a second project and fund them instead? And that's really where we're at. So, yes, Jim.
A question that may help guide this discussion. The building condition survey says that many of the buildings are unsatisfactory currently. This 17 million, will that take them up to satisfactory?
And I think the struggle answer that I've received in the past has been that survey looks different every 5 years, depending on who's doing it. And the level by which you address some items, I don't think there's a clean, if we address 5 out of the 15 components, will that tip us over the edge? That's the explanation I was given that I could kind of live with. Or is there one main piece is what I'm kind of getting at here? Are there critical areas that if we don't address it, it's going to be unsatisfactory for the next 20 years? And I think there are some critical areas with plumbing and infrastructure that would keep all of our buildings unsatisfactory.
So I guess the question is, are any of the things in these future projects fall into that critical area? Obviously, we've got bathrooms in the in the group one, because that's obviously a critical need. So is anything that we've pushed off to the future that is going to prevent, if falls into what you would call a critical need that would make it an unsatisfactory building?
If I can answer, I think I could safely say, even though I don't have the building condition survey in front of me, that no, that we're not addressing everything. I think it's really a function of funding right now. I think it would take double or maybe triple to really address everything that we need to do. But again, I go back to strategic planning, and I think that's what we're doing here. And our hands funding-wise have been tied for so many years. I've been here 19 years, and we've been so limited on what we have been able to do, and which is really has brought us to this point, right now. And we have this amount of funding right now, and I think this is getting us, closer to where we need to be. I think Harvey could speak on the next round of funding and what we'll be able to fund on that next project. But I think this is a very good start, and I know that Steady Education Department, everything, but when through the executive summary, when you send it up to, and I think my architects and even my construction manager could speak towards this, when they look at the executive summary and they go back to the building condition survey and they see that you're moving forward and you're addressing these items, and all of these items are their critical need, their quality of life items within our district, well, that's all part of that planning. So I hope I was able to answer your question. Okay.
I also wanted to add, and Tetra Tech as a whole and Lou can speak to this, there's a little bit of a misconception oftentimes with the building condition survey with regards to the word unsatisfactory. just because a building receives an unsatisfactory does not mean it's not inhabitable. Okay, something can be just at its end of life. It's working fine, but it's at its end of life. That's an item that they would deem to be needing to be, repaired. So maybe you guys can shed a little more light on this.
Okay, I was just going to add, I noticed in this one handout from the staff, someone took the time to list out per school what all the unsatisfactory items, so if everyone had a chance to look at that, that will help you see what was listed. But I was also going to say, the last couple, because you never know when SED is going to change the form or what questions they ask, but if there's one item listed unsatisfactory, that kicks the entire building to have an unsatisfactory rating. So, if you've got 20 items or one item, if there's a single thing listed as unsatisfactory, it automatically in their system makes the entire building have an unsatisfactory rating. So I just wanted to share that as well. Yep.
And I just want to chime in on what Harvey said, that there's a difference between unsatisfactory triggered by a form on SED's website and unsafe. These buildings are safe. They're habitable buildings, and so we don't have any concern about those kinds of safety issues, and I wanted to just chime in on that.
I think the only last thing I would add is, Jim, when he came on board, started to shift my thinking along with Harvey and Walter of trying to think of this as what's our long-range plan? So when I came in, I was thinking, like, how can we pass something that's going to take care of everything right away? Now thinking phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. But I can say in my first walkthrough of all the buildings, and our guests can probably say the same, there's some things that stand out that I was like, I can't lead a district where the locker rooms look like they do in the middle school. I was afraid to go in there. So things like that, I would expect to be on the list that we're taking care of, that everyone around the table knows has been neglected for years. I was looking for those type of things to say, yes, that made the list. That has to be done now, and then we can take care of other things moving on. But that long-range planning of when is our next opportunity, we saw some success with a neighboring district of getting something passed, and what is our next step? The voters voted for what is our next savings going to look like, which I love. So now they have a target date in mind for when they're going to go back at it for their next set of priorities.
And can I just get this out while it's fresh? Walter, what you just did going through all of the projects and giving alternative routes to things that aren't included in the bond, I think will be a key component for us as the communication committee when we package that in the spring. So I know that you're ready and able whenever. I just want to put that out there. That I think that information is so key, to include. Yeah.
First of all, I commend you. Progress. This is progress. This is a totally different document than we had a few weeks ago, and I commend you for that. Quick question on, and I know we've touched on this before. So if you look at the critical needs in that first column, I just did, and I hope I didn't miss one or two, but about $12 million worth of critical, we'll call critical needs. To get to, if you walk across to get to the final, what we're estimating the cost to be, it's about 17.1. That's $5.2 million of things that we're building in. Assuming that you want to now do, or you're thinking of doing a lot of this in-house, was there any discussion about maybe now bringing some of those percentages down to tighten things up? I'm talking about incidentals, cost escalation, design. Because again, to get from a cost to a final cost, or an estimated cost to a final, that's $5 million in play there. That we're saying, we're estimating it, but it's out of play. We can't.
And Tom, I would, those numbers, they're not from me. They're from our professionals here. And from what I understand is, those columns are required by SED when that goes up there. Garrett, maybe you could talk a little bit more about that. And it's a good question, all right, because there could be some surplus
I just
in there.
think even if we're doing a lot of it in-house,
Yeah.
which is the plan,
Yeah,
maybe you don't spend as much on some of those things.
and
But if
that's
it's a requirement, I don't know.
and that's a good possibility. Yeah.
Tom, are you talking about the estimated cost column versus the critical needs column? So the buildup from estimated cost to critical needs, I actually was looking at it tonight and thinking it's low. And I know that that may surprise people and disappoint people, but generally in a project, we would usually budget 25% for incidentals, saying 20. This project, I think it's okay, because you don't have a lot of things that are going to need that sort of furniture and fit up, those kinds of things. Cost escalation, it's anybody's guess as to what the cost escalation is truly going to be. I think this is a reasonable number, but it's not a fat number. It's kind of. And design and construction contingency, I'm comfortable with this generally, and if you look at the other referendums that we're building at this point, we'll hold a little bit more than that, because 10% going into construction is where we like to be. So this is really saying construction contingency, and there's not a whole lot of design contingency here. So while I understand that that may be disappointing news to people, that's the reality of what it takes to build.
So maybe I shouldn't have brought it up.
What's that?
Maybe I shouldn't have brought it up.
No, it's very important to talk about it, because
I guess the follow-up would be then, how do you track it? Do you track it quarterly? Like, how are we tracking against it? Is it quarterly, monthly? How do you do that?
well, so first of all, let me come back to your comment. I'm glad you brought it up, because if you don't, someone else will. And we all need to be prepared to answer those questions during the upcoming months. Because it's real money, and it's big money. So how is it tracked? It's tracked really weekly during the project. So once we start construction, we're going to be orders and allowance disbursements. So we'll be watching that very closely. Believe me.
I think while you're trying to get the microphone on, one of the positives is if at the end of the project there's money left over, we can pick up some of the things that we didn't identify. So it's not like it's wasted. We can use that money.
Yeah, and I think it is a good question to ask now, so that we can continue to address it. This is standard practice. Like Garrett said, on the incidental side alone, we do usually use 25% as a number. So when you look at incidentals, for example, and a lot of people understand, your capitalized interest, for example, for carrying the note is in that number. The insurances that are required to carry the project are in that number. All of your attorney's fees, your architect's fees, all of there's a lot in this number. When we go through your buildings, there's going to be hazardous material testing. That hazmat monitoring is in this number. Independent testing. Everything that gets constructed has to have an independent testing company involved. That's in the number. So going out to bid, multiple phases, publications, that's all in that number. So what happens is that gets eaten up really fast. And as a team, what we do is put together a cash flow. To your point, we put together a cash flow depending on how the project is built, to make sure we can be decisive to keeping the number, because keeping to the number is the hard part. Because we're really, if you think about this, the first phase of work, we're not bidding it until the spring of 2023, right? So that's your first hit in escalation, right? That's your open, it's only 3%. Then we're going out to bid again in 24 and again in 25. So what's going to end up happening is we're hoping we're going to be able to keep to that escalation number at a simple 3% a year, which we're driving above that right now. And then the design and construction contingency, that is a norm. The design contingency, you'd probably want some more in there. If we were doing a significant addition or construction, we probably would bump that number up. But like Garrett said, I think that we were able, through our meeting, we've been able to really get down into details. We did the corings for the site. We normally don't do that kind of front-end work. Money well spent, we pulled back on some of the scope. So, and then the construction contingency, there's always, when you're doing renovations, there's always unforeseens. You jump into the buildings. When we jump into these locker rooms, we really don't know what's going to be in there. You got over 5,000 square feet of space that hasn't been touched in years. And, you know, we have to have something built in.
And that was helpful, thank you. I think it may be helpful if some of us are talking to other people about it, maybe to just define what some of these are and know, you know, incidentals is, you know, these
That's-
5 things.
That's great. And you know what, for this committee, I think that's a great point. We can itemize what is incidental costs.
Yeah.
There's 15 items that build up incidental costs. Yep, it's a good idea.
Okay, this, which again comes back to the question, do we look at an athletic complex, or do we take that money and put it into some of the things that have been pushed off to a second project? And that's our mission at the moment, is to have that discussion and see where it takes us. Right now, I'm not discussing where. We're discussing the concept of a athletic facility versus doing more fixing ups. So I open the floor.
Voting?
Or we vote? I'm opening the floor, I'm opening the floor to,
Like to vote.
you want to vote?
Comments first?
Comment, I'd like to hear some comments first.
May I go?
You may go.
Yes, I do. Myself and my crew are on the fields every day. We're all over the district, and there's a critical need that we establish updated athletic facilities for our scholastic program. So I am absolutely confident that we should do it this time around instead of waiting even more years. I think it's that important. I think it's that quality of life. I think it's going to have a great impact to our student athletes and to the scholastic program. And I think it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, you have,
Really need me to say something?
yeah, I'd like you to say something.
Harvey, thank you. I mean, you're out there every day, so,
Well, that's Walter.
I mean, Walter, I'm sorry.
That's Walter.
I'm sorry.
That's Harvey. I'm Larry. This is
Larry, I'm Tom.
You're Tom.
See, you confused me because I didn't actually think you wanted me to say something. Walter, thank you. I think I've been crystal clear on how I feel. So I am 150% athletics. And I think the key there too is, though, I also feel confident that I can market that to people and make them understand why it's important. And not just tell them it's going to cost X, Y, or Z, but tell them like what is built into that cost. So I feel if a plan's in place, I can help you execute. So, and I think that's the most important thing.
Okay. Anybody else? Nancy?
So not really knowing money parameters, truly, maybe we need to consider whether are bleachers critical no matter where it is, or would the field be the most critical? Because I know I know the field is very critical. I'm not downplaying that at all. But I know that there's been a lot of discussion all over the place about the bleachers and the conditions and the lack of adequate seating. So I don't know if there's a way to put some of that in or while doing the fields or.
I think the bleachers are part of the,
They're all in as part of the
they're
package.
part of the
Okay.
project.
I thought maybe we were breaking it down into
I
little
think where one of the
pieces.
questions come up is something that was brought up last time, is instead of having a concession stand, that we have a mobile concession where that could then be used throughout the district at a tremendous cost savings. I mean, last I looked, the concession stand and bathrooms was $700,000. A mobile could be $30,000, $40,000 or less, you know, which in my mind is, you know, then you can use that in the middle school, you could use it at the high school, any of the elementaries having a project going on, you could bring the concession right to it. So that might be a way to bring down that cost of the facilities, and that's just one piece. If we decide that perhaps the athletics facility should be done, I would then say, let's go back and look at the dollar amounts and what can be reduced because of the existing facility, the building itself. For instance, the high school, we could use the locker rooms at the high school, where we really can't use them in the middle school. Those kinds of things. The bathrooms we could use in the high school, but we really can't use them in the middle school. You know, so those kinds of things might bring down that $9 million cost to something closer to the 5.8. But that's again getting ahead of ourselves. Which direction do we want to go in? Do we want to go athletics? Do we want to go repairs? Richard, I'm going to put you on the spot. I warned you the other day I was going to do that.
So I'm actually very surprised at the direction this has went. I think this planning document has really trended upward. I think we have a direction now where we're headed. I see that we organize all of our critical needs, and you know, it instills confidence that you've went and spoken with each of the building principals and the administrators. So if we can show the community that we have addressed all of our most critical needs, I think as a recent graduate, addressing the athletic needs should be, you know, the next thing we deal with, because I've seen how important athletics are to so many people, our students, and even our staff as well. You see, you know, how dedicated they are, and you know, no matter which side you're on, where it's going to be, I'm not going to get into that now, but no matter which side you're on, everybody is passionate about sports in Cornwall. So if we addressed all of our infrastructure needs, I definitely think we should focus on athletics. And I think this community survey shows this as well. I'm happy to see these results. So I definitely think I would support upgrading our athletic facilities.
Anybody else want to volunteer before I call on you? Okay, Jim.
Jim, and then out.
Oh,
I love how he says, can anybody else volunteer? No one has volunteered yet. He has just been calling on people. But go ahead, Jim.
You ready?
No.
you're next.
I only wanted to point that out. That's it.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of led with my thinking of, you know, if the choice is doing the athletic facilities or that second group of projects brings us from, you know, deficient to sufficient, it seems like that's not really crystal clear, you know, how we get there. So, I just jotted 3 comments. I guess, yeah, as Richard said, the community, you know, the first choice is update aging infrastructure, 75%, far and away the winner, right? I think we're doing that with all those critical needs. I think we all agree that that's done, and we all feel really comfortable that we've done that. We still need to do these second projects, so I think making sure that we plan for the future and plan for how we're going to fund that round 2 is vitally important. And Warwick voted last week to do a bond, and they, I think, had athletic facilities within that bond, and they also had a vote for a new capital reserve to fund their, I believe, a $10 million capital reserve, right? So, you know, one twice as large as we have right now. So we could debate the size of that, but I think when this goes up to the full board, we certainly need to have a real good discussion of, do we put up this bond, and in addition, put up, here's the next capital reserve, which we will fill over the next 4 or 5 years to go and do this again. So I think it's very important that we have that vision to complete everything. But if we have a vision to complete it, if we're taking care of all the urgent needs, and we have an additional $6 million, absolutely, athletics are an integral part of the student experience. I participated in when I was a student here. I would love to see a new athletic facility if we can feel confident that we're addressing those needs, and I think we can. The one thing here, looking at the numbers, and looking at the staff responses, their number 1 was bathrooms, that's addressed. Number 2, cabinetry, lighting, ceiling tile replacement, that's addressed. Upgrading athletic facilities is number 3 on the staff responses. And all the way down at number 6 is the bus loop kiss and ride. That's $2.5 million. If you add $2.5 million to the 5.8, you get up to $8.5 million. The total cost there is $9 million. So maybe we push that enhanced rear bus loop in the middle school to the next capital project to be able to fully fund athletics. Yeah.
Thanks, Larry. So I agree with everything. I know Walter spent a lot of time with all of us going through what our most important, what we viewed as building principles as our critical needs. I would agree that I think that, just like we're going to honor people's requests to have bathrooms and updated cabinetry, we have to talk about that really important component of our district. So I do think that the athletic facilities should be included, absolutely. It's, phys ed and athletics that would be able to take advantage of it. And I personally don't have any problem pushing the parking, the whatever you call it, kiss and ride, or out to make sure it's really the right, that's the right solution where we could have kids. Okay. We know that turf is the right solution for kids and for our programs.
Okay. Brendan, your turn to volunteer.
Waiting. I think the projects that we're not doing fall into a few buckets, right? So some of them are, as Walter described, we have clear in-house path. Others that we have, they're mechanical, but they're not actually at or beyond failure. So probably have a few more years. And as long as we have that component of, we now have a plausible alternative funding route. All right, there's a roadmap for those to get those funded by the time that they are, if they have 3 or 4 years left by the time they're there. Some of the other ones are athletic needs that is pretty pricey too. Like, where is it? Never there when you need it. There is the locker rooms. I'm not looking at the right school? The high school, yeah. First page, yeah. So the locker rooms there, if you think to yourself, are we going to really do a locker room for the athletes but not do their field? I mean, that doesn't seem like it would make much sense. So putting the locker rooms off in order to make room for the fields makes total sense. And then there are those, some of the items I guess that would be pushed off, and we don't really have that plausible other route is some of the site work. But I mean, if we look at the survey, I mean, the site work was indicated as one of the least important, and it's not like we're ignoring site work. We're touching some big site work projects. So I feel comfortable that what we're putting together is addressing needs, addressing priorities, and still the things that aren't, we can speak to the community on good footing for how we're going to fund them, or at least plan to in the near future. So, despite being a known hater of sports, no, just kidding. I'm actually like, can I watch the Knicks game tonight? I'm like, I support the athletic facility included in this project. Yeah.
Lynn.
Thanks, Walter. Larry. So first, I'm going to say kudos to you guys to getting to this point. I mean, to see that it's at 23 million and getting creative with the budget to get us here, I think is extremely important to point out. I'm obviously in support of having the athletic facilities in this. I feel like with what we have sitting in front of us becomes a more all-inclusive plan. Kind of touches all the buildings, the critical things that need to be done at the buildings. And it's providing quality to all stakeholders. And I think that that's pretty important. And it's also providing safety. The things that need to be done are being done. I agree with pushing the bus loop out. I mean, it's an important thing to work on, but I think we could definitely push that out if that means that we could get the athletic facility in this.
Louis.
Can I go next?
Okay, would you please?
Thank you. I apologize for my tardiness. So as I'm just catching up and filling in, my concern last meeting was when Kate spoke about her intimate needs at her building, and I can't let go of any of them. I was like, oh my gosh, here, this is the coffin nail, sorry. But coming in the tail end of what Larry briefly filled me in with Walter explaining this document here, I'm happy to see that we have meandered our way, and Walter's navigated our way here to assess the needs truly and move off what he feels he can move off to a future date, as long as that date is real and it's tangible, it's not smoke, and if we can budget in money for a field, I can support that. Larry, will you go next?
Okay. I just want to say that I am pleasantly surprised that we have consensus. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, Jeannie. Did I miss you? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm going to also agree that the athletic facilities are a need, not just a want or a wish or a dream. You talked about that in the very first meeting about wishes and dreams, and I really believe that having those athletic facilities on the menu here for a capital project would be something that the community wants and needs, and they know it. The kids who are on those fields, they know what they need, and the coaches and the staff knows too. So I think that having those athletic facilities are really critical to this. I also love that we have a future. We have a plan in place for what's going to happen next. It's not like we're putting things by the wayside and saying they're not important at all. We're just prioritizing. And I think that that's something that we do in our own households too. And so thank you for doing all of that work, because this is pretty tremendous.
And again, I apologize, because not only did I miss you, I miss Jen.
And she's the most important. Here.
There's no contingent
Stereo.
plans. Trying to make a deal over here. Obviously, I've spent over 40 years in the athletic world, so I fully embrace everything that athletics does for students to become whole adults. What has been interesting to watch since September, when this all came forward, is a lot of people go, why do you be on a committee? Nothing really happens. But you saw, I got to see, a committee grow. You really dug deep into what each of these buildings needed, and were able to get a broader picture, and I think a shift for you all moving forward, because like you guys were talking about, there are projects now that probably wouldn't have been a discussion going, oh, we could do this. We have different ways of thinking to solve some of the problems that are definitely there. So I think that in itself has been a great process for all the members here to be able to communicate to the community, going, look at, ultimately, yes, we had to make some tough decisions, but with those decisions came, we're still going to do this, and this is how we're going to get it done. We're still going to address this, and this is how we're going to get it done. Your facilities, and I'm not just the athletic director, I do your physical education and your health, and it is a teaching station as well for your phys ed, your grounds, your fields. They need work, and the kids are great and successful and enthusiastic and participate despite the shortcomings. I've seen a lot of fields across a lot of New York State. Are these the worst? Nope. But they need help, and they will only get worse if you don't address them, just like your buildings are only going to get worse if you don't address them. So if there's a way to make improvements, yes, 100%, 150%. You can do a lot still, and I think you could get a turf field, and I think you can lay a foundation to continually improve your facilities.
Thank you, and again, I apologize.
Oh.
Either of you gentlemen want to say anything? Harvey? Terry? Okay. Okay, now, going back to my comment, which is even more solid now than it was before, what I'm hearing is that this committee is recommending that we pursue going with an athletic facility as part of this bond, assuming we can keep it within the $23 million. And so I'm guessing at this point, we're going to need, well, question. The loop, the bus loop at the middle school, the new bus loop at the middle school. It's been proposed that we do not do that this round. Is that something that the group agrees with or not? I got a nod over there.
And certainly hearing Kate's perspective on it would say to me, pull that 2.5 million and put it towards athletics and put the bus loop off.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing that really concerns me is when you look at the proposed costs for the turf at the end, right? Or the athletic facilities, not just the turf. The athletic facilities or the complex, whatever you want to call it at the end. My concern about saying like, hey, maybe we could do it cheaper is not the solution to do it cheaper to try to get both in. I'd rather do both things 100% the right way and not say like, well, maybe later on we'll add 2 sets of bleachers or we'll put lights in. Later on never comes. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I built my house and was like, I'm going to put an addition on. That never happened. Right. Like you have to really look and decide like we're going to do this and we're going to do it the right way the first time.
Yes.
And if that means putting a bus loop a couple years from now,
we built
I absolutely agree with you. I don't want to have 20 years from now somebody saying that group 20 years ago didn't do it right.
We built a high school and said we're going to add an athletics facility later on.
That's what I mean.
I just think we have to do everything the best way that we can do it. Like it's the only time we're ever going to do it. And if that means, Lynn has to be a little more careful in the parking lot. Like, I mean, we've been living with something. There are,
Why are you watching me?
You drive right behind me every day. I just think it has to be done. It has to be done the really the right way. And is this bus loop in the back? Is that the best solution? Because that was a very quick conversation as well. So I just think you have to take that money and put it in the right spot.
And Kate, I'll add to you, you shouldn't be building for today either. You should be building for 7 years from now. That's what you should be building for 10 years from now.
I'll double down on what Richard said, pointing back to the data that we have, both community and staff punted exterior to second round. I mean, clear as day. So it makes sense while athletics rose to one of the higher items.
Okay, if you take out the bus loop, we're looking at, instead of 5.9, we're looking at 8.3. And 8.3 is still lower than 9. So if there's a possibility that at our next meeting, there are some modifications that could be made without making it value engineered, that they could bring it within the number, then I think we have a viable option. All right, I just did it real fast. I didn't use a calculator. Okay. Okay. So we're off. We need about $500,000.
From the athletic bundle.
Hmm?
From the athletic bundle, you're saying?
To
Right.
fund the athletic, right.
And one thing.
One way or another.
Yeah, I don't know if we have these numbers on hand in another chart, but I mean, I would suggest it's more about taking out lines as opposed to condensing lines. Because I mean, I just remember, you know, if I'm going through it, there were a bunch of things on there that even just glancing, we all kind of agreed, well, we wouldn't need that whole package because, you know, I think press box, for instance, is not something we would necessarily include.
So I just have a question, because we're so very close with this, whatever, 8477. Can we just talk about going over by that? I know it's a lot of money, but going over by that because so much of it is aidable and aid is so good right now to make this the right, like you have to have a press box.
Well, the problem is, and that now I'm going to talk as one of the board members, as we had said there would be no tax impact, which means we can't go over the 23 million, my opinion.
I also think, to Brendan's point, I'm only looking at taking away from the athletics package. There's no one that can convince me that we need 100% of what was listed in that athletics package to have something that we're proud of as a next step. Knowing that we just said that for all of our buildings, there's things that we're doing in phase 2, why the heck can't we do a phase 2 for athletics as well? So if there's something that we want that will round it out nicely, that sends a nice message for me as someone who has shifted now to supporting athletics because of the hard work of Walter and Harvey, Tetra Tech, and Lou, because I just didn't see how we could fund everything. But I would vote that we stick with taking away from not touching any of the critical needs that we already got it whittled down. But I think there's some things there that we could still be proud of, but take away from that package to meet our budget needs.
The other thing to keep in mind is that now that we've come to a conclusion that we're going to be focusing on the athletic facility, there is a greater propensity that there's going to be certain things that are not aidable.
Correct.
So when you talk about, could we just go over a little bit? My mindset is we have to build a little bit of an allowance there to accommodate for that non-aidable portion. So.
Without going into a discussion of location, it will be a discussion point, and it will become even more important because depending upon where it goes, you're going to cross lines off. You're talking, your difference was how many hundreds of $1,000s, $400,000?
Between the two locations?
No. Between the bottom line number that we have by taking that off, it's 8.4, you're saying 8.5?
So the way the athletics complex, we're just going to call it 9 million. It's within $50,000 at either location.
Okay.
And we're at 8,477, so let's call it 8.5. We're within $500,000.
Okay, so when I say where it goes makes a difference, your high school line has $611,000 to redo the tennis courts because they must be done if we don't get a turf. That $611,000 gets removed from the high school because the amount of money that's in for the proposal at the high school includes the tennis courts. So when I say it does make a difference of where it's located and what you can take off by line, to your point and to your point, it becomes a bigger discussion of location as to how many lines that you can remove.
To Jen's point, the tennis court, I must tell you, I've already taken that out of the high school athletic complex.
So it would, right.
So that's already reflected that. But to your point, there are items in there that we do not necessarily need.
Right.
So
So that's why it makes a difference when you start going line by line, like you said, of where the location is to get it closer. And where you are is going to allow you to either take them away or not take them away.
Dovetailing with your comment, I think the athletic facilities, the numbers here, I would call them really a second draft, as based on really just the work that we've done so far, where these critical need issues have been identified in building conditions surveys and gone over and poured over for a couple of years. And these two facilities have just been proposed in a couple of, they're close into where we need to be, but certainly there's room to finalize that, and I think we can certainly get from 9 million down to 8.5, and as Terry said, put something that we're going to be very proud of.
Right, and you've already identified that potentially the concession stand, if that's a portable thing versus a building, which is also non-aidable, that's win-win. And maybe there's discussion about, do you need a press box, or is there some other really start by looking at the non-aidable items, perhaps.
Right there, that's almost the 500,000 we want.
I believe that the last option we reviewed, the concession was already taken out. So I think we should look at that. Yeah, so we've looked at 7 or 8 options
The one that
now.
you handed out last at Thanksgiving still had the concession and bathrooms in at $495. It was
So-
attached to the picture.
So it's either the concession came out or the locker rooms came out at the high school.
At the high school, we took the locker rooms out because we would use the building as opposed to building new.
That's
But
right. Okay, so that's-
Both
okay.
versions had the concession stands.
So I
and
just want to take the group back to kind of, I think we kind of performed at our best when we made a decision, which Larry got us to, that there's consensus around putting that extra 8.5, whatever it is, into athletics. Now we leave it to the experts to go back, re-pull what we looked at 2 meetings ago, which had the a la carte. Here's what everything would take, middle school, high school. We would have that next meeting as refined as can be, with Walter, Harvey, and our experts really kind of digging in. And then we could have some really frank conversations about, we know what the number is, what do we take off, what do we have to have as we round out our, we're right there, but let's let them do some work, bring us back with a nice sheet that we can really play around with, and then we'll be right there.
Everyone comfortable with that? Okay, so I think that brings us to, our next meeting is December 21st. I want to thank you all. This was a very good exercise tonight, and I appreciate everybody's input. Your next set of minutes may not be as thorough as the last ones, because my scribe came in late, but I do appreciate everybody's input tonight. Thank you.